everyone. Welcome to the second webinar of Season 3 of the INSEAD Business Sustainability Series. After the very insightful first webinar on geographic and company perspectives on sustainability in turbulent times, changes in direction and practice, Atalay and I have the great pleasure of welcoming you to the second webinar with François Clément-Grandcourt. François is general manager of the lighter business of the French company BIC. He is also an alumnus of our executive MBA program from 2009. François, special welcome. BIC is known around the world for its pens and lighters, and most of us have used one of their products at a point in time. Under the leadership of François, BIC has launched an interesting number of circularity initiatives in the lighter business and is preparing a scale-up in the coming years. Atalay, which I think we don't need to introduce, is of course my colleague, partner in crime, but Atalay and I thought that this would be really interesting to our audience. And judging from the very large number of registrations, we were right. So very, very much looking forward to starting this. And François would like to start with a question to just introduce us a little bit to BIC. Can you give us just a little bit of a history about BIC Lighters? How many lighters the company has sold? It must be a big number. How many you sell annually? Where do you sell them? The growth, just a little bit to orient us. Thank you.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Thank you, Karel and Atalay, for the invite. Very happy to share. I would first jump on what you said, Karel, on the fact that there is still a lot to do. But after 10 years, I think there is already a lot to share. So to go to your point about how many lighters we produce, in fact, since start in 1973, we produced 50 billion BIC lighters, and we produced in 2024 1.5 billion units. So that's pretty large, and that's really important. We're going to talk about this because, in fact, that is part of the equation and what allowed us to succeed in building our scheme in circularity. But if we take a step back about the history, in fact, the first pocket lighters were launched in 1947, right after Second World War, in France, with a company called Flaminaire. That company was bought by Marcel BIC, BIC Group founder, in 1971. And it is sitting in a very nice city of Redon in Brittany, which is currently flooded with all the heavy rains, part of all the changes which are taking place. And in fact, the launch of BIC lighters took place in 1973. So the first BIC lighter was put on the market in January 1973. And as crazy as it may be, it was already eco-designed before even the creation of eco-design. So that was a major legacy which helped us a lot in progressing towards circularity. That means that since start, when we began with Flaminaire, was the reference in terms of quality, reliability, and durability already with metallic lighters at the time. BIC went ahead in that, and that pushed us to have and to use tools done by the micron. Not so much because a lighter needs to be as precise as the micron, but in order to be able to automate and go with very high speed in assembly, we need to work by the micron. Again, another dimension which we'll probably tackle later on.
Thank you, François. Karel and I have been working on sustainability topics for a while. We've seen the ups, we've seen the downs, right? And these are turbulent times, not only economically, but also from a sustainability point of view. So I think our viewers would like to understand a bit more of where did this ambition for sustainability and circularity at Big Lighters come from? Who was driving it? Was it easy for you? Was it difficult? Was there enthusiasm all around, or there was any dissent?
Yeah. So I will go really back in time at the creation of BIC. Marcel BIC was a lot inspired in his products already by nature. The ballpoint pen, for example, the way it's built, came from when he was in his garden and looking at how things were evolving, and more specifically on tools done for gardening. Then if we come a bit closer from today, in 94, we did our life cycle analysis, our first life cycle analysis inside the three divisions, stationary, lighter, and shaver. And that was driven by Marie Mébic Dufour, who was in charge of, who is the daughter of Marcel BIC, the founder, and she was in charge of legal aspects for BIC and as well circularity. And she was the big promoter internally for a very long time, really early, so that BIC moved on this. And then in 2017, we were finishing our third barometer of our consumption, and we were highly frustrated in the team while we were working on the next program for a simple reason. We were not finding the way to match the acceleration of the sustainable development topic. After 2015, it was clear that an acceleration was needed, but we didn't find the way, and honestly, that was really complex. So what we did a barometer, knowing that it would not be the silver bullet, far from that. But what we did as well, we decided that the barometer would remain open so that we could add additional commitments. And the third decision, which is in fact, which leads us to our discussion tonight, is the fact that we took one division, lighters, and we said that division has the right to do everything possible so that we identify a path which allows us to precisely answer this question of how to tackle this topic and accelerate. Then this is a bit less than 10 years ago. In fact, in reality, we began a bit before in 2015, so 10 years ago, and that's why we're chosen at the time to be the pilot division. I will not tell you it was an easy ride, and many reasons why, and I let you imagine. But I would say the first difficulty which we as a team faced, and I faced myself, is my own mind. Self-limitation. Self-limitation was dreadful for the 10 years, and to the point where in the team, we put as a rule that we challenge each other on our assumptions, because very often when we do something, be it the scientific studies, be it the circularity or the collection, we think that answer will be A or B. In fact, it's most often Z, alpha, omega, or even something completely different, which we did not consider. So that was for me the biggest difficulty which we had to fight our belief. And then maybe as well, I could add that there were internal debates. And this is healthy to get a debate when we speak about circularity, for example. And those debates were very interesting, but they were solved pretty quickly because we were reminded of reality because of some decisions. For example, we got decisions in the Balearic Island to make it mandatory to collect lighters. And we got two options. The law was not properly written. So we discussed with the authorities to improve the law. And we said, provided we improve the law, we're happy, as we already progressed on the topic, to work with you and to use the Balearic Island as a test area, which is very interesting because being an island allows to avoid the ripple effects of flow of product which are unplanned. The island allows to really master what is going on. So these are the key dimensions. But reality check and the fact to accept that those reality check were not just isolated topics, but were bringing us to the new reality of what would be the world, was a massive call out for us to move and being always full blast on the 10 years.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Something related. So I hear a lot of regulation, internal drive. Was there also competitive pressure? And typically there is a competitive pressure if somebody sees truly a market opportunity. So in other words, were there customers that somehow were demanding this, that you really went the circular route or the more sustainable route?
So yes and no, and I should begin by no, in fact. No competitor moved. In fact, we were the one to ask this question. If I summarize, I told you before that when BIC acquired Flaminaire, it was the reference in terms of quality. Quality is the pre-requirement for safety. Quality is basically avoid big movements in production and try to be more consistent. Okay. And safety, in fact, is to decide if this level is safe enough. So if safety standard is there, will I put quality here or will I put quality there? Okay. And so you cannot do safety if you're not fit and strong in quality. And in fact, what came out is that you cannot be good in sustainability if you're not good in safety, which requires to be good on quality. And the reason is very simple. 50% of the environmental impact of the lighter market is accidents. To give an idea of what that means, we speak about 30,000 heavy accidents with non-conform lighters, non-conform to safety standards, basic safety standards. For a societal cost, this is in European Union, just to illustrate. And the societal cost for those 30,000 accidents is 50 billion euros per year for the European Union as well. That means that imported non-conform lighters should be sold on the market at more than 200 euros the unit instead of 2 euro the unit. So basically, the question was for us, as we are really strong on quality, strong on safety, can we leverage sustainability to take advantage of the strength which we were already having? So in that dimension, that was exactly what you said, but no competitor pushed us. I would say that others try to follow with what is called greenwashing, but I propose that we skip this one.
Okay. Can I just come back to the issue of the customer? Was there any strong voice of customers coming to that you felt in some countries that say, well, the disposable product, that's something of the past? So let me just be a little controversial here.
In fact, the first, so it didn't come from retailers or consumers, but I would tell you the signal which we got. First one, 50% of the claims I am receiving from consumers is about utility lighters, the big one which allows to ignite the barbecues, for example. And 50% of those people are claiming that there's too much plastic, too much metal, and they hate throwing them away. So that's one signal. Another dimension as well for us was the fact that our raw material suppliers, some of them at least, we're trying to take advantage of monopolistic position in our portfolio. And in fact, and the question was how to limit this, and we'll discuss that later. That was one of the reasons why, as well, we wanted to work on this. And I will be honest as well, we got NGOs as well who came to us to ask questions on, well, will lighter be still something of the future? And so that's something that we digged in real details. And the conclusion was that in fact we will need even more flames of lighter in the future. Just to illustrate it, lighter is used to light, so first for smoking, but very close after that cooking. And for example, even in developed countries, 50% of the cooking is done on gas cooking. And then lighters is critical. And if I had another one in Southern Hemisphere, every single person coming additionally on Earth is living and born in slums where there is no network for gas or electricity. So only fire can allow to cook or allow for heat. So in fact, there is a growing need of lighters in the coming years still linked to that. So we will need more lighters. So our remark was, great, we need more lighters, but we have questions from NGOs. We have questions from our own employees as well. That was one dimension. How to make sure that we will have the license to operate so that we can go on bringing this essential daily product being acceptable, because we will be able to respect the boundaries and make sure that, well, it's a sustainable business.
Okay. Thank you.
François, this is the particular approach you take on sustainability at BIC Lighters in particular is linked to circularity, and this is very much aligned with the kind of discourse we have in INSEAD programs. We say carbon was a great starting point. It is actually the foundation of all of the excitement and enthusiasm on sustainable business models, but we always say circularity is next. But when it comes to executing circularity, very often organizations find that the starting points are very difficult. There are many impediments that organizations have not been exposed to in their traditional business models. So I'm sure our viewers are interested in finding out what were the most important and revealing analysis that you did before you decided to take on a circularity strategy. Can you shed light on those a little bit for us?
Sure. So we made a number of mistakes you have no idea. And I would say even the first decision which I made in 2017 was completely silly. But the good thing in that decision is that it put the whole team in motion. So that was the benefit of it, but for the rest, it was really not a good decision. So basically, yes, those trial and errors were key. The first one, for example, on circularity, I was convinced that the best way to go circular was to shred the lighters in very thin thing and then to sort them out. And in fact, we were succeeding to get plastic clean at 99.99%. But we discovered that at that level of purity, the plastic is not good and we are not able to use it. So in fact, we were destroying the raw material and not benefiting from it. So that took us 2 years to reach that conclusion. And then we went to another route, which revealed to be the right one, and really a powerful one. And this is to consider that we are dismantling the lighters part by part. It's in fact exactly like we do assembly of lighters. We would do disassembly of lighters, same speed, same precision. And the more we run, the more we discovered that we had to go even more precise, because we discovered that not only we can recover the raw materials, but later on we discovered that we can recover even the part and reuse the part. And sometimes, for a certain percentage, we can recover pretty the whole lighter. So, and this came with a bunch of mistakes, but bottom line, in fact, it came out that the lighter life could be managed in terms of disassembly. So next, great to have the machine, but if we don't have a feedstock of lighters, it's useless. So we then worked on collection to see how would that work. Would the consumer bring it back? Would the retailers accept to collect it? And in fact, it came out that it was extremely welcome from both consumers and the retail. Retail, for example, our tests are done and pilots are done in France, so we do it in tobacconists, and they are really welcoming the fact that we are bringing a box, and even they are challenging their clients to bring back the lighters. And I sell you one more lighter, but make sure that you bring the old one now in the box. And consumers, very interestingly, in fact, we solve a problem because consumers hate to throw away lighters in the dustbin because they fear a fire. So they keep it in a drawer, and when we install in an area the collection box, in fact, we often see people coming back with 30 or 50 lighters, one stroke, because they went through the house and take them all back, and then bring them and put back in the box. So the second step then was successful. There is a willingness, and to give a figure, 1 year after installing the box, we collect roughly 10% of the sales of lighters in that area, which is in fact very high compared to what we thought at the time in that time frame. So that came and was confirmed first in Paris. Then after we did a test where Balearic, I spoke about it earlier, more broadly in Catalonia. Then after we went back in France, and currently in Brittany, Normandy, and Pays de Loire, just a bit more south. We have this, and that confirmed in all the regions that we were having the same kind of behavior. Then, good, we have those two dimensions. But in between, we have to transport them. And guess what? Transportation rules are pretty tricky for products which are used and still having some kind of gas inside. So that was a big endeavor to make the law change, because the laws, most often for those topics, are based on avoiding mafia, weapons or anything else than this. So in fact, this is not meant for circular economy. So we have to go to ministries and get the agreement to get either exemptions or law changes so that this can fit collection schemes. So it seems silly, but that one was pretty difficult. And you may know as well that transportation, international transportation of waste is something which is forbidden. So now we have to declare them as parts, and then that allows to transport them. So another kind of difficulty which we had to face. So basically, if we keep it wide, we had to completely reinvent a way to organize the business. It was not just unplugging part of the business, improving, replugging, and another one unplugging, improving, replugging. We had to reinvent from scratch, which didn't came at the beginning, where I got no idea we would have to do that. But bottom line, this is what we had to do, is rebuild completely a new business from scratch. And this is what made it successful as a business model. It's when we realized that just a new business.
Thank you, François. Karel, you're on mute.
So, François, you mentioned something about suppliers. Okay. I guess you depend a lot on your suppliers for raw materials. Was there a push from them to become more circular? were they? What was the relationship, as a matter of fact? And so in today's very different landscape, suppliers can be problematic, can be opportunities. How did suppliers influence what you did?
Well, it depends a lot. We got suppliers who really wanted to come on board, and with some of them, we even built a business, which, by the way, they after succeeded to expand abroad than us. For example, we cover in our material Zamac, which is a mix of different ores, and we send those back to our supplier. And this supplier is remelting it, adapting to readjust the formula, and sending back the raw material to us. And this is this supplier, for example, who ramped up and built the business. We got other suppliers who honestly played against it because they saw it as a competition and a kind of vertical integration, which would limit their own business. For example, in plastics, we got a supplier who really misbehaved on that massively. But if I go a step farther, what happened the last years changed a lot the behaviors of some suppliers. For example, we have a plant in Amazonia, in Brazil, and 1 year out of two, the Amazonia is dry in the summer. So we have to build inventory 3, 6 months before. And in fact, our suppliers are helping us to build those inventory. All the suppliers in Germany were flooded and really with heavy damages 3 years ago. And that made them, they are metallic suppliers, and that made them move as well. So I would say that, again, different behaviors, but bottom line, time coming, we see more and more of the suppliers willing to progress and to be part of this journey.
So would it be okay to ask, how global material flow dynamics, or frictions, geopolitical frictions in particular, would affect, all of this discussion?
Oh, yes, I will take one example. For the flint, which is producing the spark of the lighter, we need to get rare earth. And those rare earth, 10 years ago, we were supplying a lot, well, only, not a lot, only from China. And then we opened our supply to get part from China and part from Australia. With what happened at the beginning of the year, end of last year, with the extraterritorial law of China on rare earth, it came out that our supplier in Australia could not operate anymore because they were using, for a certain process, a player in Vietnam whose owners were having the Chinese nationality. So they stopped operating as the extraterritorial law took place. So the fact that we have access to raw materials and be able to reuse it is critical. And we got, for example, the case during COVID time. We had an issue with a certain plastic, a nylon plastic. And at the time, we were still debugging our circular system. And we considered to accelerate the implementation because, in fact, some of our competitors are using way more of this plastic than us. For us, this is just a tiny part. For them, this is the whole body of the lighter. And the point was, could we collect those competitors so that we get back their raw material so that we can do our tiny part which requires this raw material? So those are the kind of impact where, in fact, raw material is more and more a real topic, geopolitical or with other things like COVID. Still, circular economy is in both cases a real strong solution or at least a strong help.
Thank you, François. So as I was scrolling through the participant list, I saw many friends or former students of our sustainability program at INSEAD. And I'm sure they're expecting this question. So we often tell them, the value mapping is one of the most critical components of making a sustainability strategy work, right? If you cannot quantify, you cannot justify. So what are the financial benefits that big lighters actually foresee in realizing the circularity strategy? Where do you see the economic justification, or how do you justify it to the family, let's put it that way, or to the investors?
Yeah, to the investor, to the shareholders. So without sharing details, because I cannot share details, the more we work on the topic, the more we see benefits and financial benefits. And in fact, those are really not neglectable at all. If I take a step back, where are we winning with collection? Well, two dimensions. The first one, the raw material, as we said earlier. The second one is on the fact that our collection people go in shop, and in shops where today we don't have salespeople coming, but they can do merchandising work of increasing visibility or stuff like this, which basically allows us with more visibility to get an impact on sales. So bottom line, we succeed with this program to develop our sales, not because the consumer will buy more, but because simply we'll have a better visibility than competition. So there is a real benefit, and this is, to your point, absolutely critical, because we saw that there was a momentum on sustainability 10 years ago. The topic is not exactly the same, and the mood is not exactly the same today. If we don't have a real benefit and a business model which is working, well, the question is, when time become tough, will sustainability remain? And the answer here is yes, and even that could help us in the future, beyond forgetting taxes which could come in the future, which will come, and that will an additional benefit. But as of today, it is already working.
Thank you, François.
Thank you, François. This has been a message that we have been giving in the INSEAD Business Sustainability program from day one. Okay, so thank you. So we didn't plug this, but thank you for giving it. You have so many good slides that we've seen, of course, and being hesitant to ask you, but you have this famous slide 19.
So let's go to this slide 19.
So Anna, if we could pull up slide 19.
Yeah.
Which is
so I will go
the
on
model.
Commenting.
Yes,
So
and I'm not asking you to comment on everything, but so to just show visually what the circularity is and where the value is. Okay.
Yes. So in fact, this is bottom line what the circularity scheme is for lighters. First, you see at the bottom, we collect the lighters. So I collect the lighters in boxes, which are transparent boxes in tobacconists. Then after they go in the plant, and here they are sorted by type of lighters, because we have big lighters, we have competition lighters, and even big lighters, we have different models. And then according to how, in the shape in which they are, they will take a different path. If they are really not in shape, for example, they were in the beach, in sand, and there is a bunch of sand on it, we cannot valorize it, so we have to shred it and take back the metals, and that represents a very tiny percentage, something like 1%. Then after, there is a second way for those which are in good shape. We dismantle completely, or now we have something else which we are working on, or partially. And that allows us, when they are dismantled completely, either to get the raw materials or to reuse the parts themselves, as I said earlier. And for those which are partially dismantled, that allows just to complete back the lighter after with the part we withdrew, we change and put new parts, which allows to go back on the market. We take advantage as well of getting those lighters back to get back gas, which is quite an endeavor, but it's working well. And all this allows to, bottom line, reproduce new products. I'm insisting on one thing. this is still not, as of today, industrialized. It works as a pilot. We have a plant which is working on this as a pilot as well. And the whole point now, and the next step is, in fact, to go at full scale in a country so that we prove the model not just on the regions of one country, but full country. And this is at that time that's very nice page 19 scheme will be fully efficient, and that we will be able to confirm or adjust our P&Ls and see how much value there is.
All right, well, thank you. So I think there's value in just showing how this process is really working. Okay. Atalay, you want to continue, because we have the issue of growth and competitive advantage?
Absolutely. So in a way, when people think about circularity, it's a means to reduce a certain form of growth, right? Material consumption has to go down, or that is part of the objective. But you also kind of would like to sell fewer in circular systems in its traditional sense, I would say. So potentially, if you're selling fewer, or if you're putting fewer products on the market, not selling fewer, you aim for a bit of a margin growth in those kind of circumstances. So, Karel and I have been discussing this, and we wanted to ask you, how can circularity be part of a growth strategy for a company like BIC? How do you attain growth via circularity is one question I think people want to hear more about.
Yes. So it was not originally considered as a requirement when we worked on it. But what came out is that, in fact, it was a great help. For example, yes, if I manufacture lighter and I put it back in the shop, on one hand, I'm making a saving on manufacturing. On the other hand, I'm creating an issue in absorption. I'm less absorbing in the plant. So in fact, what is really interesting with those lighters which we manufacture is that we use them, we will be using them. I speak for the future for the time being, even though production already begins, so we have some of them. That allows us to enter channels where in fact we cannot enter because the price which is required is too low. Or countries where the standard of living does not allow for our lighters, which are more expensive for the unit of the lighter, even though we are less expensive per flame than competition, that pretty old competitors, but the lighter itself is more expensive. And that allows us to test some countries which in fact are evolving in terms of standards of living, and that allows us to test early, so that we know whether those are good candidates to invest the future with regular lighter. So this is where we are. We see a benefit in that. Can I prove it with something which is done? The answer is no. As I said, we just start production of those new lighters so that we check that they are compliant to all our requirements. But there are good prospects, and we see that as an addendum to our current range with a different promise.
You're on mute, Karel.
Yeah. How big lighter 2030, 2050? How does it look like for you?
So on circularity specifically, I will be really specific. 2030, we will have one country at scale. And I hope that in the meantime, that will take us roughly 2 years to ramp this up. Most probably that's going to be France. And then in parallel, we'll be testing 2 other countries, major countries where we sell, so that we pilot there and we see whether the rules we see in France and Spain do apply in those other countries. And then if this is working well, that would open after 2 years the possibility of ramping up in 2 new countries. So 2030, I would not say that would be a tipping point for us, because we would be not at the start, well engaged, I would say, but not at the tipping point. Well, 2050, the group took commitments on CO2 requirements, and to achieve those requirements on CO2, we have to get circularity in place. So in fact, here we consider that yes, we are able to reach this in due time as committed by the group, which is quite outstanding because in fact, to achieve that, we must not lose time. And we already spent 10 years up to today. So meaning that an industrialist who would not have begun strong enough as of today, having solution and being ready to ramp up, if they are close from the kind of constraint that we have, well, I don't see how they could achieve the requirement on CO2, if I just limit to CO2, before 2055 or 2060, which would mean a 10-year overshoot. So that's for me the key questions I'm having. A lot of researchers were questioned 10 years ago or even attacked, saying you don't give enough clarity on the consequences. In fact, we had the data. I'm quite surprised that we don't ask the industrialists the same question now. And when I'm seeing this and how it worked for us and what that would mean for many industrialists, I think that question would be interesting to ask.
Wonderful. Thank you. One question. I think that our audience. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. Go ahead, Atalay. So let's tackle the questions from the audience.
Yeah, just one last question, which I think is also coming up in the Q&A as well. So there is a leadership component to sustainability execution, right? We have actually seen quite a few very successful examples of how people within an organization can be mobilized by a leader who actually can see value in the future with sustainability. How did you do that, François? What was your secret in mobilizing your organization? Because as far as we understand, a lot of people in or outside your team pay particular attention to this strategy in the organization. So how did you get there?
Yes, at the beginning, we did not include anybody new except one person in the team. So the question was how to engage people of different background, different thoughts. For example, the guy who built the machine, the first disassembly machine, let's say was not believing much in CO2 issues, but in fact he was a diver. A scuba diver. And what he hated when scuba diving was to find plastic on the corals or in the sea. So in fact, one thing is to engage people with basically what is meaningful to each of them. Then after we were with a very tiny team, 7 persons who were not dedicated to that, but spending quite some time on this. And that allowed us to go really, really quick. And that team was then enlarged to 15. What is very interesting is that in those 10 years, we lost out of the 15 persons only 2. We still have 13 today in the team. The 2, one left for retirement. That was planned. He finished his work, so that's fine. And by the way, he went on working even after retirement sometime. And another person had to leave for personal reasons, but the job was done. Why I'm mentioning that is because all the time we have been doing movement like this. So we were, at some point, we're progressing and then failing, coming back, and then restarting and going farther, etc., etc. The key reason why I'm mentioning it is that it's when we have an issue, the key point is how to restart and what speed. And when we have the same team who knows all the tests we did, in fact, the restart is extremely quick and allows to bounce back very quickly and go to something different extremely quickly. So that leads me to a learning, which is that how many corporations could secure that a team is remaining pretty unchanged in 10 years to achieve what was done. In fact, that's quite a revolution in terms of HR policies and a way to approach workforce, because the stability is a key dimension of this. And then to go back to your question, we were doing lists during COVID. We were under a tent, an open tent, so that there is no risk of contamination. And we were working, all of us, on Excel sheets, giving ideas. It was not structured at the beginning. And at the end of these were 2 days session. At the end of the 2 days, the key point was, guys, each of you pick the 3 topics you like most, and you run. And some people were saying, yeah, we need some kind of PMOs or something so that we organize. And said, no, we try just running like this, and so that everybody can go full blast. Yeah, it required some adjustment at the end, but most of the time not, in fact. And people were extremely motivated because they chose what they were working on. And that allowed us to go really, really quick to debug part of the examples I gave, like for example, the disassembly machine was part of this. So playing on what is important for people, what they like to do. Maybe the third thing is, well, we know we will fail. So go ahead, fail quick, and then we will discuss. And no fear of failure. So that was another third dimension which was key. And then the group effect helped as well a lot. And honestly, very often I was not even part of the discussion. It was inside the team, and the team was really outstanding. So honestly, that was an amazing period of time because the team achieved something which was not even thinkable at the time. Everybody was saying we would fail, and we went way beyond what we thought we would be able to try.
Thank you.
So yes, thank you, François. So we're quickly running into time pressures, of course, as always. Just a couple of questions from the audience. Can you give an example where you managed to deprioritize short-term profit to continue deploying circularity?
Yes. Well, in fact, there are topics. I'm not sure I deprioritize the short term, in fact. But on circularity, there are topics which need to be done, and they can be done in parallel. And there is one thing which will be critical at some point in time. For example, if we don't have a machine to disassemble, there's no way to be circular. And then after, if we don't succeed to collect, there's no way we can be circular either. So those need to go full blast. In parallel, there is another work, for example, on suppliers, rebuilding our value chain up to the mines. This is something which I can do year 1, year 3, year 5. Okay, I must not postpone too much. So I would more say that we adjusted the pace of some of the work stream based on the financial means which were available. But that's more this. I don't think that nothing come in mind for me that we deprioritize short term to be able to build this program. Even though we invest quite a lot of money at the end, we're not far from 8-10 million. So at the scale of our business, is not a tiny investment.
Okay, great, thank you.
So one other question that we might want to shed light on is they're asking whether you have any social responsibility projects, besides the circularity initiative. Like, are you helping improve slum infrastructures? And I wanted to tie this up with something that I heard from you before, because you always mention that when you think of a sustainability strategy, you talk to not-for-profits first, right? Yeah. So you run those ideas by them. So in a way, connecting to NGOs or thinking about social responsibility projects is also part of the strategy. Are you doing anything about, improving infrastructures in the developing world, for instance?
So yes. So coming back on the second point first. Sorry. Yes, the one who told me, gave me the solution, the right formula is an NGO. And that NGO made me allowed me to find the proper way very early on. And the message was, you want to know your product not as you know it as of today for the last 50 years, but as its impact on the environment. Do your own science. And we got then an 8-year program on science on this. I will not go any farther on this. But yes, discussing and exchanges is critical. So yes, there are programs, part of BIC, more broadly. For example, on pen. Pen is linked to education, and bringing pen in some areas of the world is really of great help for education. But if we go back to lighters, for example, in collection program, or in direct distribution, when we go direct to the shop, we are working with schemes. Some did work, some didn't work. For example, one that we initiated in Ivory Coast for direct sales in slums, that didn't work. But we worked in Brazil on another program, another pilot program, using waste pickers, and this one worked really, really well. So it's not systematic.
Very good. Thank you.
Karel, do we have time for one last question? Or
yes, and then we need to wrap up, unfortunately.
All right. So quickly, again, the critical thinkers in the audience are probably asking this question. Okay, you got one product and a market where this works, right? How am I going to take something away from this for my product or for my market? So for instance, if you were to take other big products, the pens or the razors, or if you were to look at Latin America or, I don't know, Africa, where would you see that model working out?
So you may hear the bells are ringing behind. So for me, the key point here is the software, the mental software which we built. I know that the model we have in France will not be working in an island, will not be working in California, and will not be working in Brazil. But the principles remain the same. The question is, how do we articulate them and make them work? So that's why I cannot consider that I will be doing a ramp up of the exact same model in all those regions. And each and every time I have to anticipate and build pilots before so that I adjust. Then on other products, well, stationery and shaver business of BIC are as well working on this. For sure, the solution will be different. But the key thing is, when I began, people were saying, François, you're very nice, but when you have a car or washing machine, you can pay someone with a screwdriver to dismantle. With your lighters, there's no value. There's no way you can make it happen. Well, in fact, what that person forgot is that we have billions of those lighters. And when you automate it with a machine, I produce way more raw material than any car or any washing machine. And that simple conclusion, for example, do apply for stationery and shaver. So how will that end up in terms of business model for those two? I don't have the answer for the time being, okay? But this is what is exciting in that. But still, what I would keep, it was not feasible, but we made it.
Thank you, François. What a great way to end the discussion. Karel, I guess you're going to wrap this up for our audience?
Yes, I first would like to thank you, François, for engaging, enlightening, optimistic, and sophisticated story, on how to make circularity growth and business work. So thank you so much for joining us.